After God had created the earth with light and wind and water, and after he had added all the amazing animals and plants that lived in it, after he took Noah in a big ark filled with every kind of animal over the waters that flooded the earth, and after he had placed a bright rainbow in the sky with all of its beautiful colors, God looked out over the earth and the people he created and loved so much. He looked out and saw that it was so hard for people to be able to speak with him and be with him, because they couldn't come to him unless they were holy, and that made his heart sad. To be holy, people had to pay the price for all the wrong things they had done by following the rules God had made for them. Being holy was what God needed from people in order to be with them every day of their lives. There were so many people who loved God, but couldn't stop doing things that made it so that God couldn't be close to them. The things they did, called sin, separated them from God. God was so pure and holy that if people came to be with him, but they weren't clean and pure from all of their unholy ways, it would hurt them to be with God. God was sad that he couldn't be with the special people he had made all of the time, so he decided that he needed to make a way so that people could be with him whenever they wanted to. He came up with a plan to send his own son to earth to live as a perfect human who was always holy, to take all of the bad things all the other people had done and make them right, so that everyone could be holy through him and come to God whenever they wanted to. He knew just how to do it. He got to work right away taking care of every little detail to make everything work perfectly. As God looked out over the earth with its peaceful streams of water and grass slowly swaying in the wind, he saw a girl named Mary, and he knew Mary would be the perfect person to help him with his plan. Mary lived in a town called Nazareth, and she loved God. She always tried to do what would make God's heart happy. Mary was engaged to be married to a man named Joseph, and Joseph also loved God. God thought that Mary and Joseph would be just the right people to be parents of his son, who would be their special baby, and he knew just how to tell them about it. One afternoon, Mary was out in her family's orchard picking fruit. She loved to help her family by working in their orchard, and she also loved the sweet taste of the fruit that she could eat while she picked. Some fruit was so high she had to stand on her tiptoes to get it, and some was lowered to the ground, and she would crouch down low and pick it. Sometimes she would take a break from picking fruit and lay under the soft leaves of the fruit tree, looking up toward the sun. The shady leaves would flutter in the breeze, and little pieces of sun would shine through the branches and down onto her face. As she was there that afternoon, she heard someone softly calling her name. She looked around, but she couldn't see anyone with her. It was only trees around her, with bees softly buzzing in and out of the flowers. She wondered who could be wanting to speak with her as she was doing her work for the day. She heard her name again, and went to see if someone was there, but all she saw was a sweet little bird looking for some food. She went back to keep working, and as she kept picking, all of a sudden, someone appeared beside her. Mary was so surprised. She had heard someone calling her name, but she had expected them to be coming from further away. She wasn't expecting someone to be standing right beside her when she looked over. She was so surprised that she forgot all about the basket of fruit she was holding, and it slipped out of her hands, falling onto the ground. As her basket hit the ground, some of the fruit fell out and rolled away, and as it did, the kind stranger bent down to help her pick it back up. She didn't know who this person could be, but she couldn't believe her eyes because they were so bright. How could it be? It was daytime and the sun was shining, but this person was glowing brighter even than the sun was. She had never seen an angel before. She had only heard stories about them, but she thought this must be one. As she stared, the angel spoke to her. "Mary." They said her name again. "Hello," she said back to them, but she was so nervous. She didn't know why the special person was coming to visit her and what they might want to talk to her about. "God is with you, Mary, and you are so blessed," the angel told her. Mary was unsure and didn't understand what this meant. She was a little afraid, but she loved God, so she knew that if this angel had come to talk to her from him, everything would be okay. The angel reassured her. "It's okay, Mary. You don't need to be afraid. You're going to have the most special baby, and his name will be Jesus. He will be God's son, and he will be king forever." Mary felt at peace when the angel talked with her. Her heart felt calm inside, and she knew that this person had come from God. Mary trusted God and told the angel that she would do what God had asked her to do. Then, just as suddenly as the angel had appeared, it was gone, leaving Mary in her family's orchard with the bees still quietly buzzing in and out of flowers beside her, and the leaves still softly fluttering in the warm breeze. Mary knew she needed to tell Joseph about what the angel had said to her, and how God had chosen them to be the parents of his special baby, Jesus. When Joseph heard the news, he felt unsure about it, and he prayed to God about his worries. While Joseph was sleeping that night, God sent an angel to visit him in a dream and talk to him about everything the angel had told Mary. The angel told him that Mary was going to be having a baby that was God's own son, and that God had a special plan for Mary and Joseph to be the baby's parents on earth. He also told Joseph to name him Jesus, because he would save his people from their sins. When Joseph woke up, he told Mary what the angel had said to him, and he trusted God that he would take care of them. As the time passed, Mary's tummy got bigger and bigger as Mary and Joseph waited patiently for their special baby to be born. Then, during that time, the ruler of all the land decided he wanted to make a list of everyone living there. The ruler told everyone to go back to the place that they were born to put their name on the list. Mary and Joseph had to travel all of the way from their home in Nazareth back to the place where Joseph was born, a town called Bethlehem. Mary was very pregnant at this time. She was about to have her baby any day, but they had to go to Bethlehem anyways. The journey took a long time and was sometimes very cold. Both Mary and Joseph were tired, but they kept traveling for many days. They went across lots of fields and up and down so many hills. They traveled for a long time next to a softly flowing river that calmed their mind with its beautiful sounds. As they got closer to Bethlehem, Mary felt tired from her long journey and knew that her baby would be born soon. When Mary and Joseph finally arrived, they started to make their way through the town, looking for a good place to stay. There were so many more people in the town than usual, people who didn't have homes there and needed a place to stay too, just like Mary and Joseph. Most of the places to stay were all full, but Mary and Joseph trusted God that He had the perfect place in mind for His special baby to be born. Finally, Mary and Joseph came to a small inn with a very kind innkeeper. Just like many other inns they had visited that night, this one was full too. But the kind owner of the inn said that he would make a cozy place for them in the stable where they were keeping everyone's animals. It wasn't where they thought they would be staying for their visit to Bethlehem, but it was warm and dry, and there was a place for them to rest. They knew this was where God had decided for the baby Jesus to be born. They made their way to the warm stable behind the inn and laid down soft blankets on top of piles of hay to sleep on for the night. Once they were all settled in the stable and their beds were all cozy, with the animals slowly going to sleep for the night, Mary knew it was time for her special baby to be born. Baby Jesus was born that night, and the animals watched as Mary and Joseph gently wrapped him up in cloths and slowly put him to sleep on a bed of hay in a box where the animals would usually eat their food from, called a manger. They all settled in and tried to rest after their long day. That same night, in a field far away from town, past all the houses that were around, past the fields where people grew different foods, past the places where children climbed trees and skipped stones in the streams of water, and up on a grassy hilltop, there were shepherds watching their sheep. They heard a soft breeze through the trees, and they watched as the sun slowly slipped behind the hill in the distance, meaning that the day was almost done. They listened as their sheep softly baaed in the distance. Some of the little lambs were playing with one another, and they didn't know it was time to sleep yet, but their mother slowly drew them close and began to settle as the night began to fall. As the shepherds watched the sun slowly drift down in the sky until it was almost gone, they felt their eyes start to become sleepy. They'd had a long day, walking through fields to find fresh green grass for their flock to eat. And then at the end of the day, finding the best place for their sheep to rest for the night. They were slowly counting each of their sheep, making sure every one of them had made it safely with them to the grassy hilltop with a little stream flowing gently beside it. All of the sheep were there, each one accounted for and settling in for the night. The sky was dark now, the sun had gone to bed, and the shepherds said to each other, "It's time to get some rest. One of us will stay up to make sure the sheep are safe, and then the rest of us will get some sleep." The shepherds, going to get some rest, went to find a soft and warm spot nearby to get cozy, and the shepherd who was staying up to watch the sheep walked around a bit so he would stay awake. As the time passed by, he thought about a story his dad had told him when he was just a little boy, about how God had promised to send a special rescuer for his people called the Messiah. He wasn't sure what that meant then, and he still wasn't sure now, but he knew that if God had said it, he must know what he was doing. He thought about all the stories he'd been told of how God took care of his people, and he knew God was still looking after him and his sheep too. As he thought about all these things, his eyes slowly began to close. They were tired from a full day of leading the sheep, and he just couldn't seem to keep them open. He felt happy and settled after a long day of work. As his eyes closed and he began to sleep, suddenly something flashed before his eyes. What could that be, he thought. He had seen some shooting stars in the sky before, but never any that were so bright. When he opened his eyes, he saw nothing but darkness. He looked over to his friends nearby, and they had woken up too, and they began to come over to where he was. As he and his friends gathered together, the sky became bright, just as if it was daytime again. The shepherds held each other because they were so afraid. Suddenly, an angel shining even brighter than the sun was in the sky too. The shepherds had never seen angels before, and they were so afraid. How could it be that an angel was visiting them? And what could he want to tell them? They weren't special people. They didn't have gold or silver or any money. But there was an angel in front of them. They wondered what the angel could want to speak to them about. They knew that this angel must have had a special reason to visit them that night. "Don't be afraid," the angel said. And as soon as the angel had spoken, their hearts felt at peace. The angel continued to talk to them. "I have really good news to tell you. Today, a Savior, the Messiah, was born in Bethlehem. This is how you'll know it's him. You'll find a baby wrapped in cloth, laying in a manger." Right after that, the shepherds saw so many different angels dancing all around the sky, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in heaven, and peace on earth to everyone who loves him." Then the angels left them, and the sky was still and as black as night again. The shepherds were so excited. As they talked with each other, they thanked God that he had shared this wonderful news with them. They decided to go right away to find the baby that the angels had told them about. They weren't sure where to go exactly, but as they went on their way, they felt God directing their steps to where the new baby was born. As they made their way from the countryside where the sheep were all sleeping into the city, They felt so excited that God had chosen them to come and meet the Messiah. They wondered why the angel had told them that the baby would be laying in a manger, a box where animals eat their food from. As they thought about all these things, they arrived at the inn where Mary and Joseph and their new baby were. They knocked on the door, and the innkeeper told them that their rooms were all so full that Mary and Joseph had to stay in the place where they were keeping everyone's animals safe for the night. The shepherds knew then that the angel was telling the truth, and when they came into the place where the baby Jesus was, they saw him wrapped in cloth and sleeping in a manger, just as the angel had said he would be. They were all so happy to see the baby Jesus, and thanked God that he had chosen them to come and meet him after he had been born. And they left and told all the people they met after that about the special way that God had invited them to meet his own son. Then God placed a beautiful sparkling star in the sky to shine down on the earth and to show that Jesus had been born. Wise men who kept records of the stars and lived to the east of where Jesus was born saw it. They knew that this special star meant that God had sent his son to earth, and they decided to go visit him and bring him gifts right away. They took a long journey across a sandy desert, and after many days and nights, they finally came to the place where Jesus was. When they met Jesus, they were so happy. They bowed down to honor him as soon as they saw him, because they knew he was the most special person that ever lived. Then they gave him the gifts they had brought, gifts of gold which shone so brightly, a perfume called frankincense, which smelled soft and sweet, and a special medicine called myrrh. They were so grateful God had chosen them to meet his son by showing them the star which led them to Jesus. After all the visitors had come and gone, after the shepherds went back to watching their sheep in soft grassy fields, and the wise men had gone back through the sandy desert to their homes, once the skies had darkened again after being lit up by angels dancing and singing and stars shining and sparkling, Mary, Jesus' mother, knew what God had done and how he had cared for them so well. She thanked God for how he had chosen her to be the mother of his own son Jesus, and thought about all the special things God had done often.